And a very good morning, afternoon, depending on what time zone you happen to be in at the present time. I want to thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you, of course, live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as we're podcasting on most of your podcast major platforms as well. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. We're on most just about everyone that's means anything. Okay, we're easy to get a hold of. You can find us any time of the day or night, and also if you want to get a hold of us, it's not very difficult either. All you have to do is send an email and send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. That's the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. So anyway, it is Tuesday. We're into the second day of the week. We have baseball on tap for today. We're going to take a look at two baseball games and kind of let you know how the line movement is going and in which direction the pros are going. The two games we're looking at will be the Angels against the Yankees and the Seattle Mariners against the Toronto Blue Jays. Also, we have a basketball game on tap for tonight as well. The Bucks and the Hawks, and we're going to take a look at the line movement in that game, as well as taking a look and seeing which direction the pros are going as well. And of course, we're going to talk about the winning and losing streaks. We have two games to take a look at for today: Kansas City against the Red Sox and the Cubs against Milwaukee. Kansas City is now on a 6-game losing streak, and Milwaukee's on a 6-game winning streak. But we'll go into more detail about that later on as well. So once again, thank you very much for listening. We totally appreciate you listening to the show. We know where our numbers are increasing every day, so we know there are more and more people starting to listen to the show. And of course, now that our friends up north of us in Canada are up there and they've legalized sports betting as well, we should start getting some exposure up there as well. And for us contrarians, that's like music to our ears, okay? Anyway, I don't want to go into explaining what that means. I've talked about it in the past. I will talk about it again in the near future once things start getting together. But in the meantime, as always, if you've listened to the show, you know that the first thing we do is we take a look at what happened yesterday as far as betting was concerned, kind of bring you up to date for your statistical data as far as favorites and long shots, home teams, road teams, kind of give you an idea as to what's going on there. So to start off with, let's start with the National Hockey League. The Lightning, a minus 200 home favorite on the money line, beat the Canadiens 5-1, and that's game one of the final series. And of course, the puck number went over because it was 5, so it went over that to 5 and into 6, 5-1, 6. Very simple, right? Now the homes and the favorites, as far as the home teams and the favorites are concerned, it's 1-0 so far in this round, okay? The favorites still lead over the entire playoff series. The favorites do lead 41-36. The home teams lead as far as the overall situation is concerned, 46-37. And the unders, even though they didn't cover yesterday, they still lead 39-34. So the National Hockey League, you had that one game. They're fighting for that Stanley Cup. Minus 200 as a home favorite, the Lightning against the Canadiens. Meanwhile, in the NBA, they're having their playoffs as well. And the Clippers, a 6.5-point dog, a big 240, plus 240 on the money line. They beat the Suns upright 116-102. They're kind of got away from being eliminated, and now it's 3-2 in that Western Conference final situation. The total, however, did go over 213. Okay. Now, according to most of the statistical averages that we've been putting together, okay, the favorites are 47-27 straight up, but they're 42-31 against the spread, which is most important to us, and that's at 57.5% overall. The home teams are 41-34 straight up, but they're 38 and 36 against the spread, which puts them at a little over 51%, almost at 51.5. The others still lead 38-35. Not much of a difference there, but of course, not that many games are being played because of the tournament situation. So the Clippers, alive and well, going to come back and fight another day. 6.5-point dogs, plus $240 on the money line yesterday. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the favorites, they went 8-2, with the only upsets were by the Orioles with a plus 290 against the Astros, and the Angels is a plus 142 against the Yankees. So the Yankees are really having their problems, but we'll go into that later on. The favorites continue to lead. They have a lead of 58.4%, which is 660 to 470. The overs went 5-4-1 with a push on that Kansas City-Boston game at 11, and they have a slim lead at 567 to 555, which puts them at 50.5%. So that's a roundup of baseball, basketball, and of course hockey. Those are the stats. If you're keeping record, it's a good idea to kind of give it an idea as to how the home teams are doing, how the road teams are doing, the favorites as opposed to the underdogs. This is the type of information that will help make you a better handicapper. And of course, the better you get, the little more money you'll make. Hopefully, at the end of the season, you'll have a few dollars more left in your pocket than you did before you started. Anyway, even if you break even, if you've been doing this for a while, you know what I'm saying. Even if you break even, you're pretty happy about that as well. But here, we're trying to get you over that threshold into the plus column. Not going to make millionaires out of you. There's no doubt about it. Unless you're going to be betting $10,000, $20,000 on the games, then it's a totally different story. So let's take that first break. We'll get it out of the way. When we come back, we're going to take a look at that NBA game on tap for tonight. You've got the Bucks against the Hawks. We're going to see the line movement on that game, as well as trying to determine which direction the pros are going as well. So thank you very much for listening. You're in the Sports Wagering Zone. We will be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of your major podcast platforms, again, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. We're there all day long. You could pick up the show anytime you want. So we're looking at basketball. Of course, the NBA is still in their tournament stage, getting ready for the finals. And yesterday we had one selection because there's only one game a day. So yesterday, the Clippers against the Suns. In that game, the pros and, of course, the analytics all pointed toward the Clippers. That was the choice yesterday. And as you know by now, the Clippers won that game very easily. And right now, the total percentage, the win percentage for this little method system, whatever you want to call it, is 63.6%. 63.6%. So looking at today, Once again, we leave it up to you as to whether you want to bet with the pros or bet against them, maybe incorporate some of the information that they give you as far as whatever system you happen to be using now. Either way, it's totally up to you. We leave that decision up to you. We just give you the information. You interpret it whatever way you feel is important, okay? Anyway, that game is about 8:30 tonight, and it's Eastern time, of course. You got the Milwaukee Bucks down in Atlanta against the Hawks. And again, this is game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Once these Eastern and Western Conference Finals get done, we're going up for the big championship number. The Bucks lead this series 2-1. Milwaukee has won, and they've covered as a favorite in both of the 2 games so far that they've won. Most recently, they beat Atlanta 113-102. In that game, they were 4.5-point road favorites, okay, in game 3. Now, tonight, the Bucks look to take that commanding 3-1 lead. The game on the line, game 4, opened with Milwaukee, a 6-point road favorite. The public is riding that hot hand, and once again, they're laying the points with Giannis and, of course, with the Bucks. Now, we also saw some pro money coming in on Milwaukee. As soon as the Hawks star Trae Young was announced that he's going to be questionable because of his ankle tonight, so that kind of pushed the pros over into that Milwaukee zone as well. Up until that point in time, it looked like they were looking to go on to the Hawks. But now once you have one of your key players possibly not playing, they are starting to switch their money over into the favorite, which is Milwaukee. And when they did that, it pushed the line from being a 6 to a 7-point favorite. Now, keep this in mind, that road favorites so far in this playoff season are at 65%. And also, playoff favorites with at least a 0.5 point of line movement in their favor are at 56%. Now, the pros have also gone down on the under like they have been all along in the playoffs, likely due because Young's questionable status. That had a lot to do with it, I'm sure. After it opened at 221, the total has dropped down to 219. The under in this series is 2-1, by the way. Now, when the total is 215 or higher in the conference finals, the under is at 62%. Not only this season, last season, 2-3 seasons ago, but over the past 10 years at 62%. And of course, this game qualifies into that category. Atlanta is 10-3-1. That's 79% to the under so far in the playoffs. Now the Bucks are leading 2-1. They're a minus 1,600 favorite to advance to the NBA Finals. The Hawks, of course, they're the dogs. They're at plus 850 to come back and win the series. So in this particular game, the pros, although initially it seemed like they may be thinking about going on to the Hawks, but once the word really came out that Trae was more than likely not going to play today, the money then started coming in, and it probably will continue to come in on Milwaukee as we go up. So if you like Milwaukee in this game, you got to start thinking about betting for them pretty soon, because as the money starts coming in, that line is going to start climbing as well. Now, to update the NBA title odds once again, and this is thanks to BetMGM, who gives us these stats, the Bucks are, like we said, a minus 110 to win the whole thing. The Suns are a plus 150, Clippers plus 850, the Hawks are a plus 3,000 to win the entire shebang, the whole thing, when it comes to an end. So once again, Milwaukee against Atlanta. It's about 8:30 tonight, somewhere in that time period. Of course, we're talking Eastern time. The pros and the general public, everybody, they're all on the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's the story there. We're going to take our second break. When we come back, We're going to take a look at two baseball games that are on tap for today, kind of give you the line movement in those two games, as well as kind of let you know which direction the pros are going in those games as well. So if you've listened to the show before, you know that we take 3 breaks in the show. Each one is of about 1 minute duration or so. If that's the case, we will be back right after this. And here we go again. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live right here in Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, or perhaps you're listening to us on one of the major podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, you name it. We're on most of them as well. In case you tuned in a little late, you just came and hit us right now. We talked about the Milwaukee Bucks against the Hawks in that particular game. The pros and the general public, everybody, is on the Milwaukee Bucks, and that's probably because of the fact that Trey is not going to be playing today. So because of that, most of the money, most of the people's thinking is all going in that direction. So, but keep one thing in mind. The juice is going to be climbing. It's already up there pretty high right now as far as I'm concerned, because I'm a contrarian. I love the underdog. So any movement, anything over 110 to me is a lot, okay, the way I look at it from my perspective. But anyway, if you're thinking of betting on the Bucks, you better get that money in real soon, because no doubt it's going to start climbing as we go. 6-point favorites, 7-point favorites. They may break that 7 barrier, get up to 7.5 or even 8 before the game actually starts. Just like yesterday when you had the Clippers. Clippers started out about 5.5, 6, ended up a 7-point dog in that particular game, which they won without too much of a problem. So let's get to talking about baseball. We got 2 games on tap for today. Take a look at these 2 games, kind of see how the line movement is going, and kind of give you an idea as to which direction the pros are going in these games as well. To begin with, around 7 o'clock, down in New York, the Los Angeles Angels now up against the New York Yankees. The Angels, 38-40. And if you're looking in the mirror, you reverse it. The Yankees are 40-38. Okay. The Angels stole last night's game 5-3. They were a plus 145 road dog in that game. The Yankees have now lost 4 straight games, 4 games in a row. And in tonight's rematch, the Angels come back with Andrew Heaney on the mound. He's 4-5 with a 4.72 ERA. And the Yankees start their right-hander Jameson Taillon. He's 2-4 with a 5.18 ERA. So now as we look at the line, it opened with the Yankees a minus 150 home favorite. The Angels a plus 135 road dog. You see, because the public, they just can't quit the Yankees. The Yankees have all that hype. They just say, the Yankees can't lose 5 games in a row. Well, we'll soon find out. They expect to bounce back this time, okay? Because yesterday, actually the past 5 games, they've been really not looking all that well. But the pros, they're going on to the Angels. It's another plus money payout. We've seen Los Angeles drop because of the money that the pros have come in with. It started out as a plus 135 on the money line, now down to plus 130. So the Angels in this game, they have value. They're a contrarian road dog coming off of a win from last night. And they're also an underdog with a high total. So keep this in mind. Historically speaking, high totals benefit the underdogs because there are more runs expected to be had, and that leads to more variation and a good possibility for an upset. The Angels, they're batting about 253 this season. That's the 4th best batting average in baseball. The Yankees, well, they're down to 235. They're not the Bronx Bombers so far. They ranked 16th as far as their batting average for the team is concerned. So that first game around 7 o'clock, Angels against the Yankees. General public, they love the Yankees. There's a lot of hype there on the Yankees. There's always this thought of, we call it gambler's fallacy, where you kind of say to yourself, they can't win. They can't lose 5 games in a row. Just can't happen. Or you look the other way and say, hey, they can't win 5 games in a row. It's impossible. Well, let me tell you something. That is why we call that a gambler's fallacy. It's a fallacy. The Yankees could lose 5 in a row. And the way they've been playing lately, there's no doubt they have a very good chance of doing that again tonight. So Angels against the Yankees, the pros are on the Angels, okay, the underdog. The general public on the New York Yankees. Meanwhile, around 7 o'clock as well, you have the Seattle Mariners, who are 41-38, up against the Toronto Blue Jays, 40-36, so very close. Both these teams are doing pretty good lately. The Mariners, they just took 2 out of 3 from the White Sox, and they're now 10-3. 10 games to 3, 10 wins, 3 losses over their last 13 games. In the meantime, the Blue Jays, they're not doing all that bad either. They took 3 out of 4 games from the Orioles and are now 7-1 over their last 8 games. So in tonight's first game, the Mariners come out with their right-hander, Chris Flexen. He's 6-3 with a 3.87 ERA so far this season. And the Jays come back with their left-hander, Robbie Ray, who's also 5-3, but with a 3.35 ERA. So as we look at the line at this game, it opened Toronto listed as a minus 175, home favorite on the money line, and Seattle a plus 160 road dog. Now, the pros have really come in on the Jays. They steamed Toronto up from minus 175 up to minus 195. And of course, we've also seen there's some of the houses are ready to get to 200. Now, keep in mind, these non-division home favorites are at 63% so far this season. Now, the big home favorites, that's favorites at minus 150 or more, following a day off, because they were off yesterday, okay, are 37-17 or at 69% so far this season. So Toronto's going to lean on their hitting in this particular game. The Jays are hitting 264, which puts them number 2 as far as team batting is concerned in Major League Baseball. The Mariners, they're hitting at 217, drops them all the way down to 29th as far as these situations are concerned. Now, Toronto, they're a plus 65 in run differential. Seattle, they're a minus 43. Now, we could also be looking at what could be a low-scoring game here. The total is 10. with the under being juiced to minus 120. Now, when you see that happening, the next thing you're looking for is a possibility that the total will drop down to 9.5. Now, the weather in Florida. You have to understand the Blue Jays do play in Florida. Mid 70s, 7 to 10 mile per hour winds, and the winds are blowing into home plate from the outfield. Yes, Toronto does play in Florida. They've been playing there all season long, and more than likely will finish that way until the COVID situation, as far as the regulations going from one country to another, are changed. Up until that point, Toronto will be playing their games in the United States. So in that game at 7 o'clock, once again, Mariners against the Blue Jays, not only the general public, but also the professionals. They're all on the Blue Jays. But if you like the Blue Jays, you better get ready to lay some wood on that game, because it's quickly approaching minus 200 on the money line. So let's recap the two games we have on tap for today. Also at 7 o'clock, you have the Angels down in Yankee Stadium to play the Yankees. And in that particular game, the pros are on the underdog, the Los Angeles Angels. The Yankees, having lost 4 in a row, the general public doesn't think that they can lose 5 in a row. So we'll see what happens there. Meanwhile, Seattle against Toronto. In that particular game, not only the pros, but also the general public, they're all on the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's the story there. And looking at the system, method, whatever you want to call it, where we kind of tag along, we jump on the coattails of how the professionals are betting. 2 days ago, we had two winners, Washington over Miami and the Dodgers over the Cubs. Yesterday, we had two losers. We had the Pirates, who lost to Colorado, and we had the Yankees, who lost to the Angels. So yesterday we had two losers. The day before that, we had two winners. And before that, we had a couple of winners as well. So it goes up and down, back and forth. It still is well over 54% as far as a win percentage is concerned with these particular games. So just like in the NBA, we're giving you the information. We leave it up to you as to what you want to do with it. Some people will look at it and say, one situation, they're looking through a different window. Someone may say, well, no, hey, they had two losers yesterday, so they're probably going to have a winner today. Or you may say, hey, they had two losers yesterday. Hey, maybe they go into a little tailspin here. They may lose another couple, So again, it all depends on how you look at it, how you evaluate the teams that are playing against each other at that particular time. So let's take our final break. And when we come back, we're going to recap the games that we talked about today. And also, we're going to talk about the winning and losing streaks. We have two games, two teams. One is in a winning streak. Another one is in a losing streak. We're going to talk about that. And like always, leave the decision up to you as to what you want to do. So let's take that final break. And just as always, we will be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. Here we go again. We're back for the final round in the sports wagering zone. We're going to recap the two baseball games and the one NBA game later on before we get to the end. But to start with, we're going to talk about, once again, winning and losing streaks. We started doing this about a week and a half ago or so. We're keeping a close look at it. But the one thing you have to keep in mind is what number you assign to the situation where you determine that it is a streak. Some people think 8 is enough. Some people think 10. Each person has their own idea as to what they consider a streak to be. Here we're talking about 6 games. Once a team has either won or lost 6 games, we consider that being a streak, and those are the numbers that we're working with. So this way, you'll get a general idea as to what we're talking about. So the 2 games on tap for today, you got Kansas City. They have a 6-game losing streak coming into their game against the Red Sox. So it's up to you whether you want to bet with them that they may finally break this streak. But keep in mind, they're playing the Red Sox. The Red Sox, the number 1 team in the East. So they're up against a very formidable opponent. So kind of take that into consideration. So they're at 6. They have lost 6 games in a row. The question is, will they lose 7, or will they finally break through and win the game today? So that's the story there. One other game, the Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers. Okay. Milwaukee is on a 6-game winning streak. Now, the Cubs, they've been kind of up and down, more or less down lately. So you might want to think about betting on Milwaukee going to a 7-game winning streak. But again, you determine that. You look at it and you say, hey, no, I think the Cubs are pretty good. I think they're going to finally end this 6-game winning streak for Milwaukee. But again, those are the numbers. Those are the 2 teams that fall into that category as far as today is concerned. Once again, you have Kansas City in a 6-game losing streak, and they're up against the Boston Red Sox, a very strong, a very formidable team for them. And of course, you also have the Cubs against Milwaukee, and Milwaukee right now is on a 6-game winning streak. So it's up to you. You make the choice. You do what you'd like to do. And I hope you pick the right one. In the meantime, to recap what we talked about earlier today, 1 basketball game on tap for tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks, the Atlanta Hawks. And of course, the big news of this particular game is the fact that Trae is not going to be playing. Trae Young, their number 1, their big star on the team, is very questionable with an ankle injury. But hey, you never know. Sometimes these guys get in there, they tape them up or whatever else they do, and they do play. But right now it's questionable. And with that information in hand, the pros and the general public are just going crazy on Milwaukee. They've already moved the line up from being a 6 to a 7-point favorite. And I'm pretty sure before the day is over, by the time game time approaches, that number may even climb even higher unless some news comes out that Trae will be playing or maybe possibly could be playing. So you got to kind of keep your eye on that one as to what's going to be happening. Meanwhile, in baseball, the 2 games we looked at today, the Los Angeles Angels against the New York Yankees. In this particular game, the pros are on the Angels, who are the underdog in this game. The general public, as usual, they're enamored with the Yankees. They don't think the Yankees can lose 5 games in a row. So that's the philosophy, the thinking behind that. Meanwhile, the Seattle Mariners take on the Toronto Blue Jays. Not only the general public, but the pros all agree that Toronto is the play in that particular game. But again, you're up at 195, almost 200 on the money line. So when you're getting up there, you're going to be having to lay some wood if you do like Toronto in this particular game. So, and remember, Toronto does not play in Canada. They're playing in Florida, and they're going to be playing there until the COVID restrictions have been changed. So they're having a fairly good season down there. I think a lot of the fans in that area are getting to try to kind of adopt them to a certain point. Okay. And of course, as visiting teams come in, fans can see their favorite team coming into town and playing against them as well. So it kind of works out very well for everybody at that point in time. Doesn't work out too well for the people in Toronto, and especially right now, Toronto's having a very good season, probably a better season than most people had thought. So that's the story about today. Once again, thanks again for listening. To remind you once again, as far as the basketball game is concerned, the pros are on the Milwaukee Bucks along with the general public as well. Now, as far as baseball is concerned, the general public is on the Yankees, the pros are on the Angels. They both agree that Toronto is the game against Seattle. So thank you very much for listening. Again, we'll be back again tomorrow. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So have a very pleasant Tuesday. It's got a lot of heat going around across the country. I hope you got some good air conditioning, get some cool temperatures somewhere wherever you're staying. Understand it, but still try to enjoy the day as best as possible. If you're going to be betting, I certainly hope you have a great betting situation and a very profitable day as well. So again, until tomorrow, we'll be back again on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, along with most of your major podcast platforms at 12 noon Eastern Time and tomorrow. So thank you very much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Time. Goodbye, everybody.